The opinions shared in today's video are mine and mine alone. Over the last few years, retro re-releases have become an increasingly common practice. Unfortunately, some are done better than others, and it feels like there are companies out there using them as mere cash grabs to take advantage of the retro revolution. Out of all the companies producing these types of releases, RetroBit has been consistently at the top of my list for quality and overall bang for the buck. While the company's initial efforts might not have been spectacular, their improvements show in each of their subsequent releases, making them an ideal measuring stick for what all companies should strive for. With the release of RetroBit's latest offering, the Toplan Shooter Collection, arriving in the hands of gamers around the world, it felt like a good time to talk about why collections like these for original hardware are so important in the first place. As time continues to march on, the prices for older games can increase to the point of absurdity. Some of these games could easily land outside of a price range we are comfortable paying, save for the most die-hard collectors. I know a number of people who have scooped up poorly made repros of games just to have something similar to the original without paying the high price. The original cartridges of the 4 games included in the Toplan Shooter Collection are getting up there in price, making this new bundle from RetroBit a cost-effective way for fans to own them. Other publishing efforts from RetroBit, like their recent re-release of Metal Storm, have been equally high-priced. With the North American copies of the game going for well over $100, an officially licensed reprint going for as low as $44.99 was a steal in comparison. For big fans of the game and lovers of shelf swag, even the collector's edition was a reasonable $69.99. Another great example is RetroBit's upcoming release of Undercover Cops, set to release at $54.99 for a standard edition or $69.99 for a collector's edition. To import the original Japanese cartridge, you are looking at roughly $400 upward to add it to your collection. Put this into direct contrast with efforts from places like IM8bit, where they are frequently putting out reprints of $5 to $20 games at $100 or more a pop, and the value begins to speak for itself. Now, don't get me wrong, I love my re-releases of Mega Man with their high-quality boxes, but I can objectively say I overpaid for a shelf talker. This is also a problem I've had with LimitedRunGames' retro re-releases to an extent, as their game selection isn't usually expensive for an original. Looking at you, Episode 1 Racer. On the other hand, their recent Shantae re-release for Game Boy Color is a perfect example of what I like to see from these types of collections. An expensive game being made available for far, far less. I also must admit, I think LimitedRunGames makes awesome collector's editions for these retro games. I'm happy standard editions are available as an option as well to keep costs lower for those not interested in the extras. Tying into the price is the availability of the original releases. Like I've already talked about, re-releases of games like Episode 1 Racer and The Lion King really don't make much sense considering how common and easy to find originals for them are. Games like Holy Diver or Undercover Cops, on the other hand, never saw an official release outside of Japan. Thanks to a retro re-release, a whole new audience is able to finally experience these games without resorting to high-priced imports or shoddy repros. The games also have an official English translation, but we'll touch on this more in a bit. The original asking price for RetroBit's Holy Diver release was also very reasonable at a mere $35 for the standard edition. This is also a good time to throw more praise on LimitedRunGames' re-release of Shantae. Since the game had an exceptionally low production run for its original release, it is both rare and expensive these days. On top of regional unavailability, there are games like Mega Man The Wily Wars, whose North American release is literally unavailable on an original Genesis cart thanks to it being released on the Sega Channel hardware. RetroBit has announced that this once-lost gem is getting a physical re-release for all of us to once again enjoy on our original Sega hardware. Sure, you could get it on a Genesis Mini in an official capacity, but that just isn't the same as having a cartridge in hand that I can slap into my Genesis. No more crappy repros of dubious quality for this one. Due to the very nature of this business, these reprints tend to only last one run, which in turn makes them become just as rare or more so than the originals. Thankfully, with digital distribution options becoming more feasible for the retro scene, having digital versions of these collections might become an option for users to place them on devices like EverDrives or use an emulation. I know that Pico Interactive has had some success with this option over the last few years, but if they don't pick up other aspects of their business, I'm not sure it will matter. Another benefit of re-releases is that it gives us a chance to have the best possible version of a game for original hardware, even if it wasn't available to us back in the day. Did you know that Zero Wing in Japan had over 30 different endings? If you only played the original European release, this may surprise you, as this version only had 3. With the RetroBit re-release of the game, each of these endings has been restored and officially translated into English for the first time. I am fond of the fact that RetroBit is respecting the meme intro though, and kept "all your base are belong to us" for a whole new generation to experience. This has been a fairly regular part of RetroBit's re-releases, which is why I find them more favorable to the work of other companies. We got a translated official release of Holy Diver. We got the original harder version of Metal Storm with its intro scenes and original color palette restored, the aforementioned Zero Wing content restoration. And in the pipeline are translated versions of Undercover Cops and Hammer and Harry, both of which have never been officially released in North America at all. On top of the content restoration and translation, some of these releases are seeing game-breaking bugs patched so they will play better than ever. One of the biggest pitfalls of retro re-releases and repros is crappy quality for the PCB, which could damage your original hardware either through improper voltage requirements or unbeveled cartridge connectors. If you decide you want to pick up a cheap repro from eBay, you will always run the risk of getting a potentially flawed cart. With officially licensed and produced re-releases, the chance of these problems are significantly reduced. I won't say the risks are completely gone, as, again, some companies put more effort in than others. I still can't get the fire warning from the IM 8-bit release of Street Fighter 2 out of my mind, even after all these years. For RetroBit and LimitedRunGames releases, you shouldn't have any cause for concern though, as I have seen the process they put their retro cartridges through firsthand. As RetroGaming continues its upward trend, we are bound to see even more re-releases of classic games coming to the original hardware. It is my hope that each of these companies can learn from each other to deliver re-releases of meaning and value while also making them as accessible as possible. As long as retro re-releases can pull that off, I think it is hugely beneficial to the community as a whole. In the here and now though, I have been extremely fond of the way RetroBit has been doing things, and I am excited for every release to come down the pipeline. Thank you for making it to the end of today's video. I honestly meant for this video to be more of an overlook of the Toplan Shooter collection, but as I was working on it, I just felt the need to talk about why I feel these collections are so important. And I really do think they are important. I mean, these are games I likely would not have tried out or experienced if they hadn't been re-released. Like, if RetroBit hadn't have made this collection, these are not games I would have tracked down to try to play. And even if they were, the prices on them are a bit absurd to get all 4 versus the $150-ish I paid for this collection. Like, that's one copy of Zero Wing alone sometimes. Like, this, like, great value, restored content, just overall awesome packaging. Like, this is freaking sick. Like, I love it. Love it. And it got me thinking a lot about what makes a collection like this so important, and honestly why I can't really stand the IM 8-bit offerings anymore. Like, I liked them when they first announced, but then like I really got to thinking about it, especially after RetroBit started releasing stuff like Holy Diver, and it's like, man, they really are just releasing really common games at exuberant prices. Like, this really sucks. Like, I don't know. Unfortunately, ours is a hobby where people like to try to take advantage of us, so you always need to be on the lookout for that, and it's unfortunate, really, it is, but I don't know. With companies like LimitedRunGames, RetroBit, I feel like we're moving in a step in the right direction. Like, LimitedRunGames doesn't always have the most rare games, but I mean, they put a lot of effort into their re-releases, even if they aren't the most rare, but then they have the gems like Shantae, where it's like, holy crap, yes. And then of course all their Sega CD re-releases are pretty cool too. Like, if it hasn't been obvious, I think this kind of stuff is freaking fantastic. And I mean, can you imagine if we ever got to the point where we could reprint Panzer Dragoon Saga for North America, or Little Samson for NES in North America? Like, these are games that you just cannot get legally at a good price anymore. So the options for reprints, just, oh, yes. But anyways, those are my thoughts on the matter. I'd love to hear what you all have to think about these types of collections from RetroBit Limited Run Games. I am 8-Bit Pico, whoever else makes them. I'd love to hear what you all think about that. But now if you could all do me a huge favor, and please be sure to hit that like or dislike button, just depending on how much you like today's opinion video. And if you haven't done so already, please be sure to hit that sub button so you can see when new videos not quite like this go live, but more content on the channel. Really goes a long way to helping us out, and we can't thank you all enough for the growth you've given us over the past few months. It has been freaking life-changing, so thank you all so much. We are so close to hitting our goals, and that is all because of you. Thank you. Now, if you'd like to further help support the channel and continue its growth, you could also check out that join button here on YouTube or that Patreon link in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. A little really goes a long way to keeping this place going, and we are just grateful to all of you for that. Big shout out to all of our current champions and past champions. Y'all have made such a big difference in our lives. Thank you so incredibly much. Y'all are friggin' rock stars. But that's gonna do it for this one. So until next time, my wonderful internet peeps, stay awesome, and we will see you all back next video.